Okay, when you see these in the wild, you're going to see them in the music of lots of romantic composers. They love this extended harmony. People like Chopin, Debussy, you'll see this a lot. Because it gives them a lot of stuff to work with. It gives them a lot of dissonance and options for dissonance, and ways to incorporate dissonance into their music and get away with it harmonically. So here is an example, Chopin, of a minor ninth chord in the wild. So you can see it appears as a dominant, it's a 5, and then it resolves to the 1-6-4, just like you would see it if it weren't a 9, if this were a 7th or just a dominant, right? 1-6-4, nice little circle progression right there. 5, 1-6-4, 5-7. Okay? But you can see what makes this a 9th chord as opposed to something else is that you've got C down here, and conversely, you've got this D flat right there, right? So if we stack this up, C, E, G, E, D flat. You can see, just like the book said previously, this note has to feature prominently in the composition. And you can see it's unrelenting right here. D, then D flat again, right against this chord. So if you hear it, it's going to sound like this. Right. So this D flat features prominently. So it starts like this. You can hear the C and the D flat. And then it doesn't relent. It just continues the chord until it resolves to this C. Right? So, this is an example of how that dissonant note, the C and the D flat, has to feature prominently, as opposed to being just seen as maybe a suspension or a passing tone, like in there. So, the addition of a 9th or 11th or 13th to chords does not change their function. For example, a dominant 13th chord still resolves to a major or minor tonic chord, one chord, all right? A supertonic 2-9 chord normally progresses to the dominant, which 2 to 5 is a pretty normal progression, right? It's right in the circle progression. And these chords frequently occur in a series of circle progressions. So watch out for the circle progressions. Sorry, I totally screwed that up. All right. So here, figure 10.4 demonstrates the functional use of a dominant 11th chord, which is part of the circle of progression. So you can see right here, it goes from 2 to 5 to 1. And resolves to the tonic. The 11th chord is composed using traditional arrangement of chord factors. So this is going to be the traditional root 7th, 9th, and 11th. The 3rd and 5th have been omitted. So you can see right here. And he even doubled the root. And you can see in root position. All right, another example. In figure 10.5, right here, in this Chopin ballad, the dominant 13th chord is restated several times, emphasizing the dominant tonic relationships. You see 5-13, 1, 5-13, 1, 5-13, 1, 5-13, 1, 5-13. So it keeps coming back over and over and over and over. Really nail it home. And again, you can see this dissonant chord. So we've got our C down here, right? And our A flat, E flat, B flat, right? Or A, E, E flat. This dissonance is really hammered between the C and the B flat. Okay? And you can see it's definitely part of the chord. There's no passing tone. So it's unavoidable. Again, as secondary dominants, which we have discussed, 9th, 11th, and 13th chords occur as secondary dominants. We will see it. They resolve in the same manner as their triad and 7th chord counterpart. So just treat them like all the other secondary dominants you've ever dealt with. So here we've got a 5, 9, a 5, then it goes to 5 and resolves to 1. Same thing. 5, 13, 2, goes to 5, 5, to 5, to 1. Right? So there's a little bit of history at the bottom. I'm not going to talk too much about it because it's not all that exciting, except just know that the Romantic period is when 9th, 11th, and 13th became really common. All right? So generally you're not going to find these in a piece by Haydn or Mozart or early Beethoven, or definitely not Bach. It would be very rare. But once you get into Romantic composers like Brahms, Beethoven, Berlioz, and beyond that, then these become quite common. So just another example is Schumann. As you can see, it's a secondary dominant. Here's our 5, 7, then we go to 5, 13, to 1. You see it figures prominently in the chord. We can't call any of these passing tones, right? They're all part of the chord. It's very clear that they're meant to be, when analyzing these, all part of the chord. Okay? If we look at Wagner, Tristan and Isolde, this is kind of the period Wagner especially used these types of chords. The 9th chord. And I'll put links to all of these up so you can hear what they sound like. But here, figure 10 point, just be aware. Let's see. Let's go up here. I figured 10.9. The other composers who love to use this 9th, 11th, and 13th chords were Debussy and Ravel, the Impressionists. Right? So figure 10.9, as you can see, the Impressionists really liked using it as a 2 chord, as the supertonic. Always in preparation of a cadence in a circle progression with the tonic, right? So they would love to use it as a cadence. So 2-11, then 5-11 to 1. Right? Also, very common in ragtime. Here you can see 5-13, 2, 5-9, 5, 5-7, 1. Later, these chords become very common in jazz. So it's pretty typical of jazz chords. And here they give you a nice example being used in jazz chords. It's 5-9, 5-13, and the 1-9. All right? So, some applications to go over. Let me put this on here. So, use the following guidelines to refer to voice leading practices for chords of the common practice period. So, this means anything before the 20th century. So 9th, 11th, and 13th chords, doubling is not the primary consideration because you've already got so many notes to deal with as it is. Usually you're trying to get rid of notes rather than keep notes, right? Instead, you want to remember which factors are typically omitted and the manner with which the 9th, 11th, and 13th resolve. So, if you're dealing with a dominant 9th chord, 5-9. There you go. So 5-9, the root, 3rd, 7th, and 9th are the most common factors present. Omit the 5th factor and resolve the 9th and 7th downward to the 5th and 3rd of the tonic triad. So you see here, you've got your 9th, and they're going to resolve, so the 7th and the 9th right here, they're going to resolve down to the 3rd and the 5th. And then everything else just follows good voice leading rules. The 11th chord, the roots 7th, 9th, and 11th are most common factors present. Omit the 3rd and 5th, and the 11th is usually retained as a common tone when 5-11 resolves to 1. So you can see here, you maintain the 11th, it's going to stay the same, and then the other two are just going to follow good voice leading rules. So we jump up to the 1, and then these two are going to resolve in contrary motion to the nearest available note. So pretty simple. And then 13th, the root, 3rd, 7th, and 13th are the most common factors. Omit the 5th, 9th, and 11th. 13th is most often in the soprano, which usually resolves a 3rd downward to the tonic factor of 1. So this is going to resolve down to the 1 chord, which gets doubled in the bass. Alright? So just remember the 13th stays in the soprano and it's going to go downwards. If the tonic following 5-13 is a 9th chord, the 13th of the 5-13 sometimes resolves to the 9th of a 1-9. So if you're going to resolve to a 9th chord in tonic, you're going to resolve down a step rather than down a 3rd. And then everything else follows good voice leading practice. And same rules apply. Watch out for parallel fifths, parallel octaves. Make sure that your voices are moving in contrary motion. All of that voice leading stuff that we talked about a couple semesters ago. Okay?